After the foul harvest destroyed their wealth and reputation, the Valentines shuttered off their estate from the rest of town. The Valentine mansion loomed over every other building in town, both figuratively and literally. Luka felt a chill as he approached Beck. Her eyes were locked on the strange green liquid. The nearby grass was coated in a fine layer of frost. Luka watched as Beck dipped a broken tree branch into the goo. Beck's eyes widened as flowers grew from the dead wood. First small buds, which quickly bloomed into vibrant petals. As quickly as they had grown, the flowers began to shrivel and turn gray. Beck dropped the stick with a grunt of disgust. Iggy took a step towards Luka, his sneer lit by the glowing puddle. Beck could see tears welling in Luka's eyes, his fists clenched. Some things about Beacon Pines were very different from the city, but a bully from a hayseed town is really no different from a city bully. Beck took a deep breath and thought. Well, time to bust out the tickles. Beck lunged forward and began to tickle under Tish's arm. Tears began to form in Tish's eyes as she gasped for breath between gales of laughter. Beck redoubled her efforts until Tish finally had had enough. Iggy's eyes darted around, a realization dawning on his face that he was now outnumbered. Iggy kicked at the puddle before making his escape. Beck shook the ooze out of her hair as best as she could. Chapter 4. The Best Policy. Luka paused for a moment, catching his breath. He'd only just met Beck, and somehow he already managed to drag her into this mess. Hopefully he could make it up to her. But finding Rolo was his primary concern. Roxy and Fitz looked drained. It was clear they'd spent all day searching. Roxy's temper could often be dismissed as the impatience of an older sibling, but this was the most intense Luka had ever seen her. Her eyes were wild and unfocused, looking straight through Luka. In a torrent of rambled words and tears, Luka broke down. Roxy, still exhausted and angry, softened briefly as her eyes hunted the ground in thought. With a determined sigh, she looked up at Luka. Roxy drew herself up. Roxy tried to think of the safest place to send Luka. Luka wiped his cheeks and gave a quick nod. Looking into the puddle, Roxy rubbed her arms to warm up. Mr. Nuncree jumped with a start. Luka motioned to the phone booth. Mr. Nuncree gently placed one of his substantial hands on Luka's shoulder. Luka peered up at Mr. Nuncreed. Kind eyes warmed a stern face. There was a deeper emotion hiding beneath it all. It was subtle, but Luka could sense something eating away at him. There was a shame lurking behind those eyes. A deep sadness. If Mr. Nuncreed was that worried about Rolo, maybe he could help. Mr. Nuncreed raised an eyebrow. Mr. Nuncreed's shoulders slumped. A deep sigh bellowed from his chest. Luka attempted to take a step back, but Nuncreed's hand clamped down on his shoulder. With a firm shove, Nuncreed manhandled Luka into the phone booth. The door latched shut with a mechanical hiss. As Luka pounded the glass, the floor dropped from under his feet. The inside of the phone booth was now a loose capsule plummeting at gravity's whim. Luka winced and pressed his hands to the walls. As he braced for impact, the capsule hurried to a surprisingly smooth stop. He felt a cold rush of air and opened his eyes with hesitance. Two large figures in hazmat suits occluded his view. Luka heard the deep, resigned voice of Mr. Nuncreed over an intercom. He knows too much. The end. Wait. No. This isn't the end. I know there's still much more. Somehow this went wrong. Okay, let's try something else. Well, time to bust out the strange. Beck stared in silence, the only sign of life being the twitch of an eye. At the sight of Iggy taunting Beck, something in Luka snapped. Iggy's smirk shifted to a look of shock as Luka launched himself into his stomach. Iggy's clothes were drenched in the glowing ooze. Iggy's voice began to slur as he struggled to get up. The person at the warehouse. This strange ooze and what it did to Iggy. Was Rolo caught up in all of this? Beck glanced toward Luka. Rolo was safe. A wave of relief washed over Luka, which was quickly replaced by a sense of dread. Gran is going to kill me. If he hurried, he might just make it home before sundown. Chapter 4. Our harvest awaits. Luka took a deep breath and gingerly opened the door, steeling himself for Gran's wrath. The house was empty. Luka was sitting by the pond, listening to small waves lap against a rock. His father sat in a folding chair in front of him. Without turning, he spoke. "Why don't you grab me some nice bait?" "Sure thing, Dad." Luka hopped over to the tackle box and popped open the lid. Inside was a rolling, buzzing mass. "We're fishing with bees?" Luka's father gave a warm chuckle. "Well, you catch more fish with bees than honey. Pick us out a good one." Luka closed his eyes and plucked out a bee. He could feel its wings struggle between his finger and thumb. Holding it at arm's length, he hurried over. His father deftly baited the hook and examined his work. "Interesting choice." With a practiced flick of the wrist, the line buzzed in a graceful arc. The water accepted it without a splash or ripple. The wrong choice. But I respect it. The pond began to freeze over. "Sometimes we gotta make the wrong choice before we can make it right." Pallid ice propagated across the still surface with an alarming speed. Luka scrambled back as the ground beneath him turned cold. "Dad, I don't understand." "Sorry, kiddo. Understanding isn't always part of the deal." The relentless ice shot through the fishing line toward his father. "Dad, look out!" His father casually wound the reel. "None of it's your fault, you know. Never was." "Dad, we have to go!" Luka grabbed his father's shoulders, trying to pull him away. "Please, you have to run!" The ice crackled as it spread across his father's hands. That's the thing about fishing, Luka. His chest began to crystallize. You toss your hook in, and you never know what you're gonna pull out. A shock of searing cold ran up Luka's arms. He gave one last desperate tug. The chair tipped backwards in a single frozen mass. Luka tried to stop the momentum, but it was too late. He watched the icy form of his father slam into the hard ground, shattering into 1,000 pieces that crowded around his feet. "Dad, I don't understand. What does all this mean?" The gentle rustle of leaves was the only reply. Luka's eyes struggled to focus on the walkie-talkie. Faintly, he could hear Rolo amongst the noise. Rolo's voice was coming through more clearly now, but some words were still just static. The signal went silent. Luka held still, waiting for a response, his pounding heartbeat marking the passage of time. Rolo's voice began to fade. With that, the signal died for good. Luka grabbed the walkie-talkie and sprinted to the treehouse. Luka heard a group of footsteps approaching. He dashed behind the bushes to avoid being spotted. Mr. Tolliver paused, shifting his eyes to one side. Mr. Tolliver took one long, quiet breath. The three shared a determined look. Luka could only see a cloaked shape behind the rocket. He strained to hear as a muffled voice began. Fear gripped Luka's throat. Luka stared at the ground for a moment, trying trying to place the dampened voice. The figure shifted slowly from behind the rocket, revealing itself to Luke. Luka reached over empathetically. Iggy's tone jolted to dejected anger. Luka slumped to the ground, overwhelmed by guilt. Iggy slumped to his knees. Luka grabbed the walkie-talkie and headed for the window. Luka and Iggy climbed up the back of the treehouse to its roof, where Rolo had constructed his MCDC, the Mission Control Defense Cannon. From behind the crowd of clipboards, William Kerr strode forward, a warm smile on his face.